Hello everybody, it's Rabid here. Please excuse my voice and creakiness as I have a pretty bad cold at the moment. I've been sick for the last week, getting over it. Hopefully eventually. But yeah, today I'm making a video because of the server that I help manage, craftau. We are looking at doing a reset, and the reset is a good time to reassess our current rules and make them more clearly defined. One of the rules we were considering that we put up for discussion to the community is a limit on docked entities, as well as limits to ships and station sizes. And one of the questions posed by a member of the forums, 33cav, is how do we determine how many entities are on a object? And this is a good example of the ship here, one that particularly belongs to Cav. It's not that difficult for moderators to count entities. I mean, or to see how much structure is on a ship, because basically we have access to everything in the game. Well, senior moderators do. Player moderators will be slightly limited in what they can and can't do, but they should be able to at least view the block count of the main ship if needed, so they can deal with it. So today we've got this ship here, which I've renamed player build, and as you can see, navigation green marker here. If I select it, we will get the stats of that ship. Alright, 942 million power, 57 million shields, doesn't look too badly. Structure and mass. But as you can see, there's a turret there. There are turrets here, and we've got and this is the reason why we've as moderators have to keep an eye on these sort of things, because we get some people doing unusual features, like here's one example here where it looks like there's just turrets docked to the ship. Oh, looks fine. But as you can see, there's actually a rail docker and a ship core there, because they are mounted to a plate, which is then mounted to the ship. For some, only the designer knows why. Seems impractical because it just adds to the entity limit. So once all this stuff starts becoming detached, you get problems. I guess one argument could be for if it becomes detached, the turrets can still keep firing. But usually, yeah, the turrets are the first things to go, especially in the case of swarmers. Now, I've already done a bit of a look over on this ship, so I can tell you some of the stats. It's almost 7 million blocks. It's like 500 metres in one direction, 500 metres in another. So, yeah, a lot of blocks in there. The unusual thing about this ship, though, is it also has large chunks of hull docked on to the main ship instead of being part of the actual ship. So what this means is if the ship core or the docker gets destroyed, the large section will fall off. Why would somebody do this? There could be various reasons. More commonly, it would be to bypass the block count. As I said, the ship is 7 million. Once you undock the items from it, you see there are items that have 100,000 blocks to them. They're just hull. But that won't show up if you go into the main ship, as I will show you now. So if you go in, tap F8, we're now inside the ship. If I go into build mode, get that in the dark area, yeah, you can see the ship is 6.9 million blocks, just under 8 million, as well as dimensions and other stats. Now, this build menu will not show the statistics of anything docked to the ship, but this is why we have the navigation builder. We go to docked. We now see there are 2, 4, 6, 8 main entities docked to this structure. As we can also see, they show the mass as 0.1. This is not the case, because once those, if I undock those, which I will not do now at one hit because it'll lag it up. For example, this could be a large chunk of armour. That is another 200,000 blocks of 50k mass, which obviously means that it then takes the ship past the predefined limit of 7 million blocks, for example. We say, okay, you can't build a ship over 7 million blocks or these dimensions. Somebody might think they're clever and build a large structure of hull. Yeah, as I said, the problem with this is because it's rather ineffective because while it might inherit the shields and things from the ship, once those shields go down, it was very easy for an enemy to undock this entity. And as I said, there are a lot of reasons why somebody might want to do this. Okay. So yeah, let's get out of here for a second. So yes, we have that structure limit there. Now also have the turrets. Now we've got 8 docked entities. If we do turrets, now everything is visible, and we can see there's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Something about there, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. So it looks like about 40 entities. Alright, we'll just jump to that. It's not that difficult to sort of get an idea of what is on a ship when you're a moderator. And then the same deal as the tab F8ing into the ship, we can tab F8 into any other structure. As we can see, we've got what appears to be an anti-personnel turret. Okay. Tab F8. Another one. Or we can go into here and then use the arrow keys to switch between items. Here's another one that is 3.3 blocks, which is part of the turret assembly. But as we can see, that's not exactly always a functional thing. So normally what I would do in this circumstances is I would go into single player, take a copy of the blueprint, because we can save a blueprint of any ship that's on the server. Like for example, let's go here. As we can see, if I go here, might help if I get out of things. So as we can see, yeah, if I go out, get rid of the navigation filter for these turrets. I mean, this person was worried about, how you're going to tell. Now, if we're docked to a station, as we can see, as I move closer to this entity here, if I bring up the navigation, change the distance border, we've got 4.3 metres. That is quite clearly going to be the block in front of me, and voila, the selected block is the one in front of me. So let's go destroy entity, because I can get a rough idea of how many blocks and things are on this piece. There we go. And I can do basically this, strip the ship down. I can undock everything in one hit, but that will drive the server ping up into the thousands and cause lag for everybody that's currently on the server massively, and risks. That's another reason why we've got to consider entity limits and rules, because especially internally docked items run a risk of lagging up the whole system. Again, I'm over this one. Oh, look at that. Magically selected. And we can dock, destroy entities that are docked to destroy entities that are docked to another entity if we delete the right one with the destroy dock command. And again, and as you can see, this only takes us sort of seconds at most. We have to spend a few minutes on a ship. It's going to take longer for the sake of this video as I'm explaining what I'm doing. Okay, because I did the distance thing. There we go. Problem solved. Now I can go navigation filter to turrets, because then we can target these bigger ones. Get rid of those, and this is how, if we couldn't get onto single player, this is how we would do it. We would just go through, make sure we delete the right area, and strip down the ship so that we can find the parts that need to be undocked and check them out. Now, as we're seeing, we're getting less and less entities visible, and it'll end up being just the main components of the ship, which, as I said, there are large parts that are just hull, and a very bad design for some people, as I said. We'll find ways around the rules. That's the other thing about the reset, is we will be enforcing the rules much more thoroughly after the reset. We're trying to give people a fair go. That won't change, but repeat offenders we've got to going to have to crack down on, unfortunately. So yeah, now we've got the turrets up there. I'm guessing those are those internal ones we've had, but what I will do is, so we've got the tools here. I can just randomly go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of thing, and count destructive entities. So it's really not hard for moderators to know what's going on in a game like this. Let's see. Let's get the docker down here so we can undock this and see what happens. Oh. Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about here. So it's such a large structure, it's now lagging up. So let's go turrets off, docked off, and that will show us that we've got these ships. Let's destroy the main ship and wait for the game to catch up, and there we go, everything will return to normal. And what we're left over with is a huge chunk of armour with no systems on it. That is just nothing but a problem when it becomes undocked. It would make more sense to have this docked, just built directly to the ship. But as we can see now, that's also an extra 100,000 blocks that it adds to the ship limit. So if you have a 7 million block limit, some people would think, oh, well, I can get an extra 100 here, 1,000 here, and a couple 100,000 there, and the moderators will not know any better. But we know, we can see, as you can see. And when we get to see a bad build like this, we would have to step in and go, look, this isn't going to function. I mean, you saw what happened when I just undocked this one piece, because it's got no thrusters, there's no way to move it without adding power and thrusters to it. Now that's one thing that came undocked, and you saw what happened with the ping. That was a manual docking. Now you have several of those, and you undock every entity on a ship that has like 30 entities, especially some of those internal, or they fit over the ship like a glove. It's going to cause problems. So we'll step in and advise players that they rectify it, give them the opportunity to do so, and then if they fail to do so, we have to step in as moderators and do it, because a lot of these rules and guidelines that we're looking at changing, 98% of the players on the server aren't going to be impacted, because most do smart builds. They pay attention to problems and listen to the moderator's advice when we intervene. Most players will not build a ship anywhere near 7 million, and most players will not have 50 entities docked to a single vehicle. Any sort of changes that limit anything will affect something like 2% on the server, players on the server. I can think of at least 3, maybe 4 players out of a possible 100 that would be having trouble. And again, a lot of these players are long-time StarMade players. They are experienced at building. They're aware of the problems and limitations of this game, because it is still in development. It has not been optimised. But they still continue to ignore issues. That's why I'm making this video, to show a visual representation and writing it down. This way it's clearly shown what's going on in an easy to understand format for everybody. But yeah, this should answer the question once and for all of how do we count entities. Well, it's rather easy, and people can do a lot of this themselves in single player. If they want to know how moderators can do things, get in single player and have a go at it. You will have all the commands and functions that we do, with the zero risk of crashing a server with a number of players on it. But yeah, this just also highlights, as I said, the reason that we're having these rules is because a lot of ideas that we get put forward to us are, I think ships should be 70 million blocks and 1 kilometre in every direction, because that's how I want to build a ship. I think shipyards should be this big, stations should be this big, because that's how I want to build. The thing that people need to keep in mind, again, the game's still in development, but as moderators, our job is to keep the server running smoothly and make it as enjoyable as can be for the majority of the players, not a few. Our decisions aren't like, this is what Rabid wants, this is what SuperWookie wants, or this is what Optimised wants. This is what is going to benefit the greater community. What is going to make this more fun for the majority of players. We have no self-interests in the decisions we make. Our interests are just for the sake of the players. And as I said, 98% of the players, this is just rough figures, but it's just to indicate a huge majority of the players will see a massive benefit to any changes we implement, well, hopefully. And the massive amount of the players, the majority of players, will not be impacted at all by any limitations put in. It is just going to be able to just provide guidelines for players with no self-control. They will now have to be governed by self-control, and we will have better guidelines to say players, there's no confusion about what players can and cannot do on the server. And yeah, no confusion. Anyway, I hope this has been an informative video and has answered that question of how do we count entities or know how many entities are on a ship, as long with how we know how many blocks are on an entity. And I would also like to point this as a good example of, this is being a bad build. You don't dock huge chunks of blocks to a ship like this, because it is just asking for trouble. I mean, it's different to if people are docking ships to their structure, because with the rail systems and things like that, you can now have launches and things, and you can have ships set up so that they're not going to be too much of an issue when they become undocked, because they'll get launched off the ship, or we can advise people how to do that. Where a build like this just seems at the moment, you know, I'd have to speak to the actual owner of the ship to get an idea of what it is they're trying to do. But a build like this just, to me, seems like trying to bypass limitations and structures, and the problem is that it can cause, it's just too massive to ignore. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in game. Take care, people.